Magic, a Treatise on Esoteric Ethics, Part 2, The Power of Demons, by Manly P. Hall, published in 1978. All occultists realize that there is but one source of vitality in the universe, and that is the emanation ring of the universal Logos. This power is not split up until it reaches the lower worlds, where it grades itself according to vibratory rate. Magicians, both black and white, draw their power from the same great stream which pours eternally from the center of the causal being and spreads along the lines of the radius to the circumference. The difference between black and white magic lies not in the force used, which is always divine power, but in the manner that it is secured and employed. The source of the black magician's power is said to be the devil, to whom the infernal conjurer must sell his soul in exchange for the cooperation of this evil spirit in the attaining of his nefarious ends. In order to clarify this problem, let us analyze the composition of the devil, who is, in reality, the most abused creature in the universe, for man, through his own perversions of divine energy, forever transmutes his own deity into a demon. The personality of evil. For many ages, theologians have insisted upon personalizing natural principles. All the great forces of being are dressed up like puppets in a Punch and Judy show, and they also have pronouns, him or her, applied to them. This is one of the main reasons for the inability of the theologians to read the Bible correctly or intelligently. They are just unable to see the abstract power under the concrete symbol. For ages, religion has made the devil a human being, and incidentally, human beings devils. This is incorrect, both in principle and in application. The devil is a natural principle, the product of natural means, and the ultimate of natural perversion. The devil is a compound, complex creature, dividing itself up into all the sins of the calendar. Studied as a group entity, the devil is the spirit of perversion or negation, the created principle of misuse. Evil is not a false thing. There are no false things in the creation of a true God. Evil is an abuse or a misuse of power. It is the crossing of currents or an interference with the divine plan. We may say, as one definition of evil, that it is the right thing in the wrong place. The worst evil in nature can be transmuted into good by the simple process of adjustment. The average intelligence of the consciously functioning man is sufficient to make a god out of any demon by the simple process of inversions, or flipping the poles, polarity. Likewise, he is capable of making a demon or an evil thing out of any good thing, or God by placing it in improper relationship to other things. The word devil is used to cover the two excesses of polarity in nature, for when uncurbed, either will destroy the organism that man is seeking to construct. The two great demons of creation are Satan, Saturn, and Lucifer, Mars, or according to the Greeks, it would be Venus. Satan is the spirit of caution, prudence, and when perverted, negation. At his door are laid the sins of omission. Few realize that man is responsible for the things that he has done. This is part of the divine law. It is just as wrong not to do the right things as it is to do the wrong thing. Satan inhibits, he draws back, he holds aloof. He is keyed to crystallization and his unhampered reign would result in cosmic inertia, for he destroys action. He is symbolized as the reaping skeleton, for he governs the bones of man and the planets, which are the bones of the macrocosmic man. He is the cold demon of ice that freezes the spirit in the blood, and is given dominion over the tomb of unrealized hopes. He is the spirit that finally calls unto himself all things which have poured out through his mystic rings. Lucifer, on the other hand, is the spirit of excess, the flaming sun of rashness, and the ruler of sense gratification, over which he wields dominion with a scepter of serpents. Those who fall victims to his powers do deeds of violence, not because he wills it so, but because they have this spirit of energy and pervert him themselves. Lucifer is the light bringer. He is transmuted by man into the fiery demon of war and hate. His power is used by man as the inspiration of lust and of passion, while he would have it used only for the attainment of ideality. Uncurbed, those who fall under the sway of his influence dash madly to their own destruction. He is always opposed to Satan, seeking to snatch the soul of man from the cold embrace of Saturn. He is the heat that incubates the soul, but man uses him as a flame to burn up reason or critical thinking. All of the powers in nature naturally serve the good, but as they are the servants of those capable of wielding authority, man makes out of them barbarous spirits who damn his own world. Between these two thieves of excess, Satan, utter coldness, and Lucifer, blazing heat, hangs the spirit of man, crucified like the Christ of the sublime allegory, seared by the burning fire of one, and chilled to freezing by the negation of the other. Here is the great truth. Suppose either of these forces which man has made into demons were to withdraw. What would happen to the plan of being? If Satan were to go out of the scheme, man would be burned up by the fiery passions of Mars and or Venus and the angels of Lucifer. Without the chill caution and the curbing of Saturn, his soul would be speedily lost in utter debauchery and licentiousness. If, on the other hand, Lucifer should withdraw, man would soon be a stone again, incapable of incentive, of motion or emotion, and chained like the sufferers of Dante's Inferno by the icy fingers of death. Thus it is the eternal battle of these great principles, like night and day, tempers the blasts and blends them to the good of man, that he may ultimately reach the goal to which he aspires. Such is the mystery of night and of day. If the sun were to shine all the while, man would be burned up in its rays, and so vitalized that he would speedily turn into ether, while, if night forever enshrouded him, he would gradually return to a crystal. Satan and Lucifer are not evil, but they are two of the greatest powers in all creation. Without them, the universe could not come into being, for Mars, with the Lucifer angels, is the dynamo of our solar system, and without them, the planets could not keep up with their endless march. On the other hand, Satan builds the earth and the worlds by his crystallization, without which we would have no solid substances to form bodies with. It is not force or power, but the perversion of the force which constitutes evil. The magician says, quote, Daemon est Deus inversus, which we may say the demon is power perverted. Therefore man, the perverter of power, is the creator of demons, because he is the lowest creature capable of exercising authority from within his own being. The lower kingdoms are forced to react upon good impression and obey unquestioningly. In Paradise Lost, Milton tells us how sin and death were launched into the world as the result of the disobedience of man. Satan, as prudence, negation, and crystallization, represents death, who eternally inhabits his creation, while Lucifer, as energy in action, represents sin, the positive expression of misuse. They go about ministering to the needs of creation as constructive and helpful powers, until the black magician, with the innate perversion of his own soul, bends them from their appointed way and then launches them upon man as spirits of hell. The ancients called the forces of nature the one-eyed gods, because they were no respecters of persons, but fulfilled their appointed paths, whether it be to kill or to resurrect. The individualizing consciousness of the 7 rings of sparks cast from the universal pralaya, or resting period, must become the one molder of these forces, and the karmic responsibility for this molding and the expressions of these forces rest not upon the forces, but upon the human and the superhuman intelligences. The black magician is one who learns to manipulate these forces for selfish and destructive purposes, his own aggrandizement of the fulfillment of desire, while the white magician just prays that he may learn to manipulate them as God or the good would have them manipulated for the salvation of the divine creation. The powers are in the hands of those capable of invoking them. It makes no difference whether for good or for ill. For this reason, the schools of white magic conceal these powers from man until through growth, purification, and personal unfoldment he gains the proper incentive for using them. The power of black magic. We must not disabuse our minds of the idea that the black magician cannot injure us because we are in the right, or that he is too weak because he is evil and we are good. This is a foolish concept, taught to prevent man from strengthening himself, and is propaganda of the black path itself. It is just as foolish as to say that if a prize fighter were boxing, say, a baby, that the baby would win the fight because he had no ulterior motive, or because his soul was undefiled and pure. Thousands upon thousands of people have not enough ambition to develop the necessary strength. In fact, they do not even know that their soul is even worth saving. They are living honestly. They are good Christian people, but so purely negative that they are positively advertising the fact that they are easy marks for anyone desiring to avail himself of that opportunity. They are not black themselves, but they are the type that helps to make possible the perpetuation of black magic. That the right will ultimately triumph is undeniable, and that the black magician will fall victim to his own excess is a literal truth. But many must bow their heads to the tyrant while he passes by, and only those who are strong are in real safety. Individuals who have mastered nature's forces to such a degree that they can stop the heartbeat of a person on the other side of the earth with a mental ray, or burn a 2-inch hole through a 1.5 foot of an ebony structure with astral fire, are dangerous whenever met, and the average, quote, so-called good person has absolutely no chance of withstanding the blows of a true black magician or black magic. Only foolish underestimate this danger. A wise man will protect himself against it, for an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. The white ray places the shield of, quote, David between them and any dark forces or dark energies, and in this way they protect themselves. We have reached a period in history of the world when ignorance is criminal and deserves the heaviest penalty. Ignorance is not black magic, but it is the greatest ally that black magicians and black magic has in the world today. People who do not know any better are constantly doing someone else's, quote, dirty work. That is the fruitage of their indolence. When we attempt to break nature or divine laws, we tear down our bodies and render our consciousness negative, and in this way, opening those centers of our being through which we can be influenced and often obsessed by the dark or black forces. This is almost as great of a crime as perpetuating black magic yourself. People must realize that they cannot straddle the fence between right and wrong. They are either on one side or they're on the other, and while doubt remains, we can count them as being on the black side, for doubt itself is an attribute of Saturn or Satan. Those who are not striving for the highest partake of the lowest. Let us meet this problem fairly, neither with fear nor with too much confidence. In humility and contrition of spirit, let us realize that the work being done in the world by the black forces all the time is quite real. Recognizing this, let us band ourselves together and join in this righteous war, which is standing side by side with the brothers of light in the battle for human souls. When light comes, the shadow goes. Where the sword of enlightenment spirit strikes, the hosts of darkness and negation are dissolved. But remove the light for only 1 second, and they return as powerful as before. The powers of darkness work alike through the thoughtlessness and the silly, the arrogant and self-righteous, and many of our most earnest truth seekers are unconscious channels for these forces of evil or darkness, since in the moment of weakness they allow the beast to attain mastery over them and through them to attack the world. We should learn to discriminate between light and darkness in the world that we live in, and watch our hearts night and day, that there may issue from it nothing that can be used as a weapon for destruction of the light. Do not worry over your past misdeeds, for worry itself breeds those demons, but eliminate them from your aura, planting instead good seeds with constructive labors. Feel the weight of your own personal responsibility in this problem, for the realization of responsibility is good for the soul. Demonstrate this acceptance of responsibility to the higher powers of the cosmos, for when your light shines out, the spirits of evil must slink into the corners and cover their faces with the shadows of their cloaks. The demoniacal powers of the ancients. Let us now consider those strange creatures of other planes, some said to be souls lost from our own life waves, whom black magicians use in their conjurations. Many of the transcendentalists of the past have forced these elementals and nature spirits to serve them, as in the days of the lost Atlantis. But the true black magician does not work through the ethers, which are the home of the etheric elementals. He works through the entities who dwell in the astral light, or the animal magnetism of the lower astral plane. The true black magician can become, and usually is, clairvoyant, because he can never go any higher than the astral world. To this plane he is tied by his passions, his hates, his incantations, and the animal nature which is the basis of all black magic. The ancients claim that there was a hierarchy of demons for each of the sins of man, and that in reality the demons were, in most cases, the incarnated principles of these sins. By this, it is understood that the animal excesses of man build on the lower planes of the astral world strange creatures, some resembling debased human beings, and others shaped like animals, lizards, snakes, and many other reptiles. The power of the black magician lies in his ability to direct these soulless creatures, while not in reality individualized things, still have tremendous power over their essences, both in the body of nature and in individuals. We seldom come to the realization that our passions and our hates create these demoniacal beings in the superphysical worlds. But this is one side of the secret of black magic. Every evil or debased thought and emotion of man helps to build these tearing, rending creatures, the innate qualities of which became the hands of those who know agencies for the destruction of the powers of light. It also seems part of the plan that those who claim these demons shall themselves fall victim to their own slaves. For one after another, the black magicians are sucked into the maelstrom of the astral hells. The lower planes of the astral world are the three hells of religion, and are the homes of these excess-created beings that battle each other with never-ending fury. The black magician, becoming a conscious channel for these forces, launches a stream of hell demons into the world. In so doing, he sells his own soul, for these forces must pass through his own astral body, in exchange for the powers that these demons will give him over his fellow men. The powers of these elemental creatures are practically unlimited, and there are many depraved souls who are glad to barter their immortal souls for the power which these demons give them over the material world. There are two types of black magicians. One, those who use the demons of the astral plane for their own villainy, which they invoke through necromancy and invocation. And two, those who create their own demons and then launch them against the world. The first group does the greatest harm to the world, but the second injure themselves more. This first group is composed mostly of conscious black magicians, while there are many in the second group who are totally ignorant of what they are doing. Some of these people never learn from their mistake until the demons that they themselves have created come back to the persons who have sent them forth. The white magician uses none of the powers of that animal world in his work, but rather seeks to transmute the poles of the beast within himself into higher and finer qualities. The white magician labors entirely with the finer forces of the elemental planes. He is a builder, not a destroyer, and seeks to liberate rather than to dominate his fellow creatures. The white magician has dedicated his soul to the immortal light, while the black magician has sold his for mortal glory. The grimoires of the Middle Ages are filled with chants and charms for invoking of spirits. History is filled with stories of black magicians, but the true student of occult science must have nothing to do with these things other than to protect himself against them. Spiritual research. Do not experiment. In spiritual things, experimentation is usually fatal, and unnumbered students have gone to ultimate graves and lunatic asylums, or have become obsessed while they were trying something. Keep away from phenomenalism. There is nothing in it for the true student. He is not seeking to gain salvation through his eyes, but through his soul. Phenomenalism never appeals to the higher side of the nature, but at most satisfies only inquisitiveness. As of old, so today, the cry is seldom, quote, "Save souls," but it's usually, quote, "Show us miracles," end quote. Have you ever felt that a person that you have met is, quote, evil? Have you ever felt a strange repugnance for a certain person that you've come in contact with? These are the elementals and the thought forms which permeate the aura of the person in question. These elementals are drawn by the law of attraction, and if you have similar qualities within your own soul or your own being, these creatures will leave the others and flock to you and then live like leeches off the best that is in you. Often when people leave a mediumistic seance or fortune-telling, they carry away with them dozens of these demon forms that have entered their organisms when they made their willpower negative, and thus they've opened the door. Others carry from this place many of these elementals who, unable to penetrate the aura of a positive person, still flutter around it, awaiting the opportunity to enter. The first time they lose their temper or they do a destructive act, the door is opened and the elemental can enter. And if any of these demoniacal creatures were to confront a person on the physical plane, it would scare him half to death. But because the unfortunate person does not see them, he does not worry about them. It would be wise if people did consider them. However, as they will find out if they do not fortify themselves by taking the white or the right path. Man is but a tiny germ floating on the sea of crisscrossing impulses. If he allows his own protecting aura to be broken down, these forces will rush in from every direction and so confuse and waterlog him that he will lose all chance for higher understanding. Idleness and negativity are cardinal sins, and the devil of all religions will find work for hands that are not laboring for the white masters. In this day and age, the light must shine forth, and the rulership of demons must be terminated. A large percentage of man's spiritual, intellectual, and physical affairs are today in the hands of the elementals, brainless creatures, and their masters, the black magicians, whose minds are dens of iniquity. Out of this world must come a few who, with hearts and souls undefiled, will keep that light burning, that the powers of darkness shall not triumph. The false dominion of demons must fall, and with it the goat of Menides, the Prince Baphomet of the world. The false light and the false darkness must pass away, that the light of truth and the true darkness may come into its own. From the passions of man there pour into the world streams of living death. From the hearts and the mouths of men, sin and death are launched into being. These will go forth slaying and to be slain, bringing down upon civilization the curse of the, quote, gods. Black magic will sink our continent as it has those that have gone before it, for it launches upon us the furies of the elements and the holocausts of the earth. Only one procedure can prevent this cataclysm. These demons must be starved. All passion must be transmuted into compassion, and the black magician must be brought into the light of truth, that the law, divine law, may be fulfilled. This concludes part 2. Watch the playlist for the final part, part 3, the final section of the book, Black and White Magic, the mechanics or the inner workings.